We're going to call this meeting to order, please. Thank you for everyone for being here. Welcome the people. And let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Annie, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, we'll entertain a motion, please, to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll move to adopt tonight's agenda as presented.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. At this time, we have call to the public. I don't think we have anyone.
That's a shocker.
Thank you. Item 6, superintendent's report, 6A.
All right, so let's start with enrollment. You have sheets. They're actually back to back. The first one is last year's number that's circled, which was 2218 ADM. And the back of that sheet is the current, and these are 40-day counts. So that was the October 26th was our 40th day. That it was at 2,000, almost 58. So we are down 160 ADM. That's not necessarily kids. That's because kindergartners and preschoolers are only counted half. We are down about 35 ADM, which is 70 kinders, which is significant for us. We're down another 30 at the high school, and the rest are spread out 1st through 8th grades. So I did want to mention, I was in a meeting with Superintendent Carter, and he threw out a number that his office has calculated there are 1,200 students in Yavapai County unaccounted for.
Wow.
So they were in school last year, and for whatever reason, they are not enrolled in any school in Arizona, not just in Yavapai County. No school in Arizona, they're not registered anywhere, and they have not registered as a homeschooler. So there are 1,200 students county-wide that are unaccounted for. They could be staying at home, they could be just not at school, we just don't know what's going on with those kiddos.
That's a big number.
It is a large number.
Yeah.
Well, and the next number is there's 50,000 statewide in that same boat.
Oh, my God.
50, that the number of kids, we've lost 50,000 kids in the state enrollment-wise. So it may be a little bit different number, they might have moved out of state or whatever. But there's 50,000 fewer students this year than there were last year, which is a little less than 5% of the kids. There's about just a little over 1 million students in the
So
the
they're
state.
not online or at home, or they're just not registered anywhere?
They're not registered in a charter school, they're not registered in a public school, in a district school, because charters are also public schools, and they're not registered with the counties as homeschoolers.
Wow.
Because some families are keeping their kids home and choosing to homeschool, and that's perfectly fine. But what they need to do is register with the county schools office in whatever county they're in, and register as a homeschooler, and they just haven't done that. So that's it's a little bit scary. We have 50,000 kids statewide and 1,200 kids in Yavapai that are missing out on a year of school potentially, and it's concerning. So, and we're down 160 ADM, which is actually probably closer to 200 kids.
Well, this virus has been just awful.
On multiple fronts, it really has. Wanted to give a good shout out. I was not able to attend because, as we were talking about earlier, I was working a voting poll on Tuesday. But we recognized our staff members of the month on Tuesday morning. We had at Territorial School, we had our teacher of the month was Danielle Frederick, and our staff member of the month, which has been very busy, trying to keep things healthy, which is our district nurse, Catherine Berner, and she's stationed at Territorial School. At Del Rio, we have Laura Heron, and which is our teacher. Our staff member was Gail Ray, who's our librarian there, our library para. Heritage is Sarah Jones, which is our teacher, and our staff member was Aaron Hanna, who's our day porter there. He is our the custodian, kind of day custodian at Heritage. At the high school, we have Wade Krug, who's our teacher, and Christine Reese-Evans is our athletic secretary. And then our district staff, I've been hearing a lot of good things from about Janice Gabbert, who does a lot of our field trip driving. So she's been getting kudos from it's basically been sports teams that have been out on trips, and she's been taking care of our athletic teams while they're out. So I want to say congratulations to those staff members and teachers that are doing a great job under difficult circumstances. So I want to thank them. And we have a lot of teachers and staff members that are doing a great job under difficult circumstances. I do want to thank Donna Webb from JEDS, who is our sponsor for our Teachers and Staff Member of the Month. She's been doing a fantastic job helping us recognize those staff members.
I thought somebody else was doing that.
It was, and she ended her support last December.
Oh, okay.
And so Donna Webb picked that up in January, and we've been very excited. She's done, like I said, a fantastic job in supporting. She supports our district in lots of other ways, and this is just one of those ways. So she's done a really good job for us. So I want to give a shout out to Donna.
Is she the gal who owns the restaurant up here?
She owns Jed's,
Yeah.
which is up on the right-hand side, just close to the farm,
Yeah.
close to the where they grow the field grass.
Excellent food.
Yes. And I'll give another shout out to her. Working as a poll worker, she gave basically a half-price meal for us and delivered lunch for the poll workers that wanted to get lunch from her. So, she supports the community in other ways as well. So that was nice of her. Trans-Western Pipeline. We're all tired of hearing about Trans-Western Pipeline, although I'm sure they are a fantastic company. They're doing what they need to do. But just as a kind of to refresh your memory, they have a pipeline that goes along the 40 and then tees off in Ash Fork and comes south through our district and goes through Humboldt and Mayer and Black Canyon City and on down to Phoenix. And so it's a pipeline company. And if you remember, must have been close to 10 years ago, they were building that. And you can actually see still where they put the pipeline in spots when you're driving out of town. Well, they have sued about their tax assessment for actually the 9th year in a row. And they are assessed not by the county assessor, but by they are what's called centrally assessed, which is by the state of Arizona. The Department of Revenue assesses because they cross county lines. The state assesses pipelines and stuff like that. And so they have claimed that the state has misassessed their property significantly, and so they've sued to get that those tax dollars back, which is they have every right to do, and as a business they should be doing that. And what that means is that they just settled for the past 5 years to the tune of $171,000 just for Chino Valley schools. And if you look, there is a chart in here that kind of, I think we are getting off lucky. Little Ash Fork School District is $1.1 million. Seligman School District is almost $900,000. And so I think we are pretty lucky in those cases that we're only at $171,000. So that money is going to have to be paid back to them. What happens is it actually gets added to next year's taxes. So the community paid less taxes because they paid more, so the community has to pay a little bit more to reimburse them for their taxes. But you can see it's, the total just in Yavapai County is almost $5 million that they were over-assessed in taxes.
Why don't they straighten that out?
Okay, so that's an excellent question.
I mean, 9
Same
years,
thing.
yeah.
That's a fantastic question. And what's happened is last legislative session, there was a bill going through the legislature that was being helped by a lobbyist that represents us as part of the Rural Arizona School Coalition, and COVID hit. So just like all the other bills that were in line to be looked at or considered, it dropped dead. So Superintendent Carter, along with, there's been various county superintendents, because it affects the entire county pretty much, along with our lobbyist that represents the district, along with some other people, are really pushing to get this taken care of. And so I got news this morning that Senate President Fan is getting a working group together, and Seth Staples, who is the superintendent of Ashfork, he's just got the most to consider right now, is going to represent the school districts, and then there's other stakeholders that are going to be in this working group to come up with a solution that prevents this from happening in the future. And so it could either, there's two ways to address it. It's the Department of Revenue, which is actually under the control of the governor, so the governor can say, fix this, or it could be done legislatively. And so they're hoping to have one of those. The other thing they're trying to do is to come up with the money to pay back Transwestern so that it doesn't have to come from the different taxing entities. That $1 million for Ashford is it like 40% of their operating budget or something like that, I think?
It's more than.
It's a huge amount of their operating budget. And they've worked hard to kind of get their taxes situated, because there was some issues with that earlier, and this just kind of blows it out of the water. So potentially the district may not have to pay that money back, the state may cover that, but that's still up in the air. And we're still, we're hoping to have something taken care of as part of the next legislative session. So people know it needs to be fixed. People have tried. It's just now that we just need to kind of get it done. In other words, so there's a letter from the county attorney talking about it. There's also an email from Mr. Carter talking a little bit about how to maybe solve the situation. So that's for your information. Wanted to talk a little bit about the impact of the election. There's really one thing I wanted to talk about, and that's Prop 208. And Prop 208 was the additional tax that's going to be levied on single people that make over $250,000 in adjusted gross income, or those couples that make over $500,000 in adjusted gross income. That passed on Tuesday night. And so what that means for us is the tune of, and I mentioned this in a prior meeting, of about $1.6 million. 50% of that must be used and spent on compensation for teachers and classroom support personnel. That could mean increasing existing salaries of teachers and classroom support personnel, or hiring additional teachers or classroom support personnel. So one of those two. There's 25% of the revenue must be spent on student support personnel. And then there's 10% on mentoring and teacher retention programs, and 25% for career training and workforce fund at the Arizona Teachers Academy. So getting kids to work and bringing teachers into the profession. So we'll have $120,000 basically to pour into salaries. It's very clear that it's non-administrators, so none of this money can be used for administrator salaries. That's very clear in the statute that I specifically read today to ensure that. So can't go to me, can't go to Cindy, can't go to the principals, assistant principals. That money cannot be used for that purposes, but it's to get into the teachers and librarians and bus drivers and all those that are working with kids.
Can it be used for that new online school?
It's specifically for compensation, so that would have to be salaries.
Okay.
Now, we could use somebody to monitor that, like a staff member to monitor that program, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But it specifically said compensation or new positions. So it's really got to go to people. And lastly, at the December board meeting, a couple things are going to happen. There's going to be my annual evaluation is due. So we'll have an executive session after the regular meeting for my evaluation. And then also, we'll swear in the new board members, which includes, you need to be sworn in again, even though you're on the board. So Mr. Carter will be here to swear in Annie, along with Mike Fogel and Peter Atona. And so we want to make sure that that's available. So there is the normal evaluation instrument that I'm required to give you, and you can choose to use it or not. I know that in the past, you've chosen not to, but it's up to you guys whether, what you want to do with that. And maybe refer to it and kind of think about it, and that's just some of the things that we can talk about.
Is it up to us individually, or?
No, it's as a group.
Okay.
Yeah, it's done, one document for all of you. And then we also need to add a meeting, a special meeting. I'm hoping for December 8th. What happens is December 1st is too early for us to get our revised budget in, which is due by December 15th. So that extra week gives Rebecca enough time to kind of square things up, figure out where we're at, so that we have an accurate revised budget to share with you. And so we're talking half hour. You know, we have to do the normal hearing, which is start the hearing, end the hearing, that kind of thing. Let people talk that want to talk about the budget, and then a vote. And there may be some personnel, I don't know, but those are, we're not going to add anything else to keep it long. So it could be in the middle of the day, it could be at 5 o'clock, it could be whenever works for your guys' schedule. But we're hoping to be able to do it on the 8th, if you are all available.
I already checked, I'm good.
Is there any time that would be good?
Well, it could be afternoon for,
Annie, do you need to, after school's out, so that you can pick up your kids, or?
Hold on, I was just gonna look at that, that's a Tuesday. Just, whatever time you pick, I'll try to make it. Does that work?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Well, what time works best for you?
Probably like after school.
What?
So your kiddos get out, what, 3?
So
It's the latest?
Three would be okay, because I pick up Duke at 2:30, so 3 would.
Can we say 3 o'clock
3 o'clock would
on,
be-
Yeah, I like 3
on
o'clock.
Tuesday the 8th?
Yep.
Tuesday the 8th, okay. So we'll have our regular board meeting.
On the
and then-
1st?
And then we'll have this one.
Then we'll have a short special board meeting,
Okay.
3 o'clock, for just the budget and maybe a personnel report.
And the one on the 1st is when we'll be sworn in?
You'll be sworn in, correct.
Okay.
So Mr. Carter has said he's gonna be here at 6 o'clock. So we need to kind of spread it out to at least 6, because he's doing something on the Verde side and is coming over to, and should be able to be here by 6 o'clock to swear you all in. And I've reached out to Mr. Atona and Mr. Vogel, and they are planning on being here already. That's my report, unless there's any questions.
Questions, anybody? Okay, thank you. Item 7, the consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. Item 6D, financial report. Rebecca, sorry. Skipped right over you.
So right now, our M&O is showing at 0.57% remaining. That's not really accurate because we have a lot of COVID-related expenses in M&O right now. We're just waiting for the enrollment stabilization grant to come through. We're supposed to know by the end of this month what our amount's going to be. So once we get that, I'll be able to do journal entries to move money, and our M&O will look better, hopefully. Capital, we have just over 9%, and then adjacent ways, we're still at 60%. We're still waiting for the town to send us our final bill on that. Other than that, not much more to say.
And also those amounts are based on our projected enrollment, not including our decrease in enrollment.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's gonna change a lot December, because I know our budget's gonna go down probably in December with the revision. So I'm hoping we have enough carryover that wasn't accounted for in the adopted budget that will make up for that loss, so.
But wouldn't we have realized some savings from being shut down? Like electricity and
I don't think significantly.
Were custodians here every day too? or-
We had custodians, so
Okay.
you gotta remember that all our
Bus
normal
drivers.
staff we paid, and staffing is 85% of our budget, 80% of our budget. So, we didn't lay anyone off, we didn't, we may not have filled some positions that people left, but, we paid the people because, they were working like they should have been. They were either working online, in the buildings, because we had our teachers teaching, when they were online, teaching while they were in the buildings. So we didn't necessarily have a ton of people on campus for the first part of school, but we had some. And, but I don't see, like I said, salaries are a majority of our budget, and we were paying those.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Uh-huh.
Item 6. Item 7, the consent agenda.
I think we have one more, do we have another item? Maybe
Student
not.
activity,
Oh, the student activity,
Yes.
sorry,
that's okay.
again.
The only thing going on with student activity right now is athletic stuff. Nothing really to say about student activity. Just the normal stuff with athletics.
Any questions, anybody? Questions? No. Okay, good, thank you. And now we're gonna go to item 7. It's just math, I can't think with it on. Appreciate a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 9, business and finance.
Personnel is on the bottom.
Okay, personnel report. Thank you.
It's okay.
All right, we have one new classified substitute, 6 resignations, 6 classified changes, 1 certified change. We're moving on into our next season of athletics. We have 12 coaches, 4 extra duties, and 2 current employees that were expanding their hours a little bit temporarily, and I'll explain that. So those are time sheets. And so I do want to mention that the resignations that we have are all, none of them are COVID related. So they're all,
Yay.
there's one teacher involved, but he hasn't been at work since beginning of August for family issues,
Okay.
not related to COVID. So he's that's has nothing to do with COVID. All the others are not COVID related. We have one, for example, number 1 on the supplement. She's actually working for us. She has to quit to do her student teaching, then we're gonna hire her right back. And actually, she's on here twice. Once to quit, and then the other is number 3 to rehire after student teaching complete. So, that's been great. Our teachers are stepping up, and our staff are stepping up, and we appreciate that. And so it's good to see. The timesheets are it doesn't have numbers, but the last 2 on the main page, they are our CASA staff who have been asked, we'd like them to work a couple extra hours to help out with duties at Del Rio in the middle of the day. We've gone from 3 lunches to 6 lunches to keep fewer kids in the cafeteria, to help out with social distancing. That just means more need for supervision. And so they've offered to step up and do a couple hours of supervision for us in the middle of the day before they start their CASA assignment. So we're asking to expand their job a little bit. But, and the other one, I mentioned there was a teacher that is not coming back. Instead of hiring to replace that teacher, the other 4 teachers in the grade level have said they will take on the students if we pay them more. And so that was their choice. It's something that they chose that they wanted to do as a group. It was gonna be all or nothing, and all 4 of them chose to do that. And so they are on here under extra duty. They get a quarter with a quarter FTE, which is a quarter of their pay extra for doing a quarter more job.
That's awesome. That's
So-
awesome that they stepped up like that.
Yeah, so we do appreciate that as well, so we want to definitely honor them and pay them for the extra work that they're taking on there. And that, teachers are hard to find right now, and so that really got us out of a bind, so we want to appreciate them. And they did that during the online portion, also took extra kids and did that, so anyway.
So question on the supplement, there's like somebody that wrote something, is that supposed to say leaving instead of they're living today?
Yes, it's a language learner.
Okay.
It was
Just
our
making sure I was
custodial.
right,
It was
didn't
our,
miss
in the,
Oh, yes,
in the letter,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
When I first read it, I was like, right
Yeah.
on. So am I.
And it would be language too.
Yeah.
Yeah, phonetically it works.
Yeah. A native Spanish speaker, that's, and
It's
so
the right
that's
sound.
the issue going on there.
Gotcha.
Any questions?
Nope.
This is an action item. Appreciate a motion, please, to approve the personnel report.
I'll make the motion to approve tonight's personnel report and supplement.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 8B, extension of temporary CALSA mentor positions.
So when we had the student study labs, the board approved temporary positions to supervise those kiddos. When we went, the idea was once we went to all in person, we would no longer need those positions. What we're asking is to extend those positions to help us with the added supervision that we believe we're gonna need. Of the 6 positions that you approved that we're asking to extend, only 1 is currently filled right now. So we're talking about 1 additional body. The job's been posted, we just don't have the applicants to fill those positions other than the 1. So we'd like to keep that 1 on and keep the other 5 positions available. This is something that's just while we're in, COVID mode, to help us with those supervision and which allows us to provide better services for our kiddos during this time. So it would be temporary, not something that we want to keep forever, just something that we just are asking for right now.
Questions, anybody?
No.
Entertain a motion, please, to extend, and you can read them there.
I'll make the motion to extend 6 of the temporary CASA mentor positions for supervision of students through May 2021.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Scholl. Item 9A, district calendar, Mr. Scholl, please.
This is the time of year that we typically approve the calendar. It was based on last year's calendar and, or what would have been this current year's calendar, sorry, before we made changes to it. So we start school on August 4th. New teachers come back start July 22nd. Returning teachers come back on the 28th of July. All the normal holidays and everything else. Our work agreements and contracts are based on 208 working days. There's actually 209 working days in this calendar. In the past, we made everyone take a day off without pay, and so what we've decided to do is to, for hourly employees, just pay them for that extra day. So our secretaries, our custodians, we're talking about 12-month employees. So we're not talking about our paraprofessionals and things like that, because they're only 10-month. So our 12-month employees are our school secretaries, custodians, the staff in the district office that are hourly. They would get an extra day of pay. And then the exempt employees, which would be administrators and directors, would get just a floating day off. So instead of working 208 days, they would just get a floating day off during the year sometime. And Karen, who takes care of leave, would have to keep track of that for just the administrators and directors. So the administrators and directors would not get any additional pay, they would just get that extra day off. The big difference is we end school on a Tuesday instead of Wednesday, which actually graduation is still on Wednesday. So that's kind of nice because the teachers don't have to go to work all day and then have to go to graduation that night. at the high school. And so we'll have just the normal last day of school on Tuesday and graduation on Wednesday evening. Any question, this has been reviewed by the SEAC, the Superintendent's Employee Advisory Committee. They have taken it, they have seen this, and Larry is the chairperson for that committee, and he can attest to that, so it has had some, at least review by staff.
Any questions?
Nope.
This is an action item, we'd appreciate a motion, please.
I will make a motion to approve the 21-22 district calendar.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 9B, 2019-20 school level report.
Okay, so this is something new that the state's requiring now. It's normally gonna be with our AFR, but they extended it this year because of the COVID stuff. So basically what this is showing our revenue that's generated by the schools versus how much we spend at the schools. And it was a lot of complicated numbers and information, and so John came up with a summary sheet, which you guys have. I sent you the whole document electronically, but it was just too much to print. So the main thing to look at is with the money generated by the schools for SPED versus how much we spend at the schools for SPED, we are short like $700,000. So I think the main reason the state wanted to do this was because it's showing that we basically are underfunded for SPED.
Will
And-
this proposition that passed affect it? The bottom line?
I would say no.
No.
It's gonna impact all the staff kind of equally, and we still, we still are, I don't wanna say we're overstaffed, because we're not, we're probably understaffed when it comes to special education. It's just that we aren't given specific funding for special education like we should be.
And we have like the alphabet groups like ASBO and all of them. They have really been wanting the state to change the funding formula for SPED for a long time. And I think this is basically gonna give enough information to support that the formula needs to be updated so that schools are funded correctly for SPED.
As an example, a student that has a speech and language disability, or somebody that might have what we call our resource kids. So they're the lowest level of special education students. They still require a ton of paperwork through an IEP, an individualized education plan. There's therapists that sometimes work with them. There's a teacher that's typically assigned with them. They bring in an extra $10 per student. And that's our largest group of special education students is our resource students. There's other students that will bring in, 20, 30,000, but we have to have a full-time aide working with them along with the therapists and the teacher doing the IEPs and things like that. So the kids deserve the services that they're getting. The district isn't getting reimbursed for those services from the state and the federal government adequately.
Well, is it safe to assume that all the schools in this?
We're not alone in this. This is,
Yeah.
we're in good company when it comes to that situation.
I would be surprised if there are any districts who come out ahead in SPED. I really doubt there's any.
Okay, good. Questions, anybody? Is this a site number 2 font?
Yeah, it's pretty
I'm just believing everything you say right now.
Yeah. Okay, this is an action item, so.
I'll make a motion to approve of the approval of the 19-20 school level report.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 10A, COVID instructional model.
So this is an item that, that at the last board meeting that we kind of, you requested to kind of be on the agenda to revisit every time. I do want to say there are no recommended changes right now to the model. I don't want people to freak out that we're going to make any changes, because that's not what I'm recommending right now. What I am doing is I'd like you to approve the document that I put that we'll share online, which is basically, in the past, you've approved similar documents that kind of outline what online instruction is going to look like. Then it outlined what hybrid instruction looks like, and then all in person. This is kind of a combination of online and all in person, because in my mind, all in person means that we don't have to worry about COVID. This is a kind of a all in person while still worrying about COVID. So there's some things, for example, face coverings that we're still requiring, limited after-school in-person activities, no volunteers on campus, things like that. So at the top, it's in-person instruction guidelines beginning October 26, 2020. These are the things, and there is really, it's the hybrid information, just saying that kids will be here every day. That's really what it is, okay? I do want to share a couple things. I do have this that I passed out to you. This is an updated, the updated benchmarks from the Department of Health Services. They came out this morning. When it comes to the benchmarks and the number of cases, as we all know, is going up pretty much nationwide. It's going up in Yavapai County. These are county numbers. And so the one that came out today is 53 cases per 100,000. You can see there's one that's not highlighted yellow because that's my estimate based on the Department of Health Services data that's available to everybody. And it's probably going to go up another, I'd say, almost 20 to 72 cases per 100,000. Okay, so we still are in the what's considered the moderate risk range, but just something to kind of keep an eye on. The percent positivity has gone up. It's now at 5.6, which puts us, it moves us from the minimal risk up to the moderate risk range for percent positivity. That threshold is 5, so anything over 5 is moderate risk, anything below 5 is minimal risk. And then last is the COVID-like illnesses, which is basically hospitalizations out of 4 counties, Yavapai, Coconino, Apache, and Navajo, and that's relatively low. That has to be below 5, and it still is well below 5. Okay. The ADE, well, actually, let me back up. The Department of Health Services changed their guidelines on how to use the benchmarks last week. I don't know if you heard kind of in the news, it was a bit controversial. They were saying they changed them to reflect what schools wanted. The schools in the ADE said, what schools? Because we don't know what schools had input on this, but anyway. They're saying that initially the guidance was you should be looking at all online instruction when one of the benchmarks, either cases, percent positivity, or COVID-like illnesses, goes into the red, which is a substantial risk. And we're not close to that yet, so not something we have to worry about right now. The new guidance says you should be considering all online when all 3 benchmarks are in the red, which has not been the case ever since they've had benchmarks. So even when things were at the highest, it was not the case. So you know, I know someone was asking about how things are going in, at the schools. I really think that you know, there's information went out about a student that was tested positive for COVID at the high school, and we had to. That information came to us last Friday. Our district nurse did some contact tracing, and we had to ask some kiddos from the high school that were close contact to stay home and quarantine. There was an article in the paper that discussed that a little bit, and I thought the paper did a decent job of describing what was going on. But we've had one student at one school for the entire time that we've been the hybrid and all in person that has been positive. There is rumors about one at Territorial. Those rumors came up because a staff member read the video or was watching the video that the district nurse put out about the high school case, then saw who was talking and said, well, she's here at Territorial, that means we must have a case at Territorial. That is not the case. We have had no positive cases at Territorial School, despite what the rumors are saying. Okay? We've had one contract staff member that I've told you about that was positive that came onto campus before fall break even. And we had some kiddos that were asked to quarantine because of that. So we've had one adult and one child on one campus the entire time. We don't know of any kiddos or adults that have gotten COVID transmitted on campus. I think that the staff, that's an indication of what we're doing right now is working to keep our kids safe. I really think that's a good indication of that. The transition, we still have worried staff members as they deserve to be worried. It's still not, we still need to be prudent. We don't want the pandemic fatigue to get us and get our guard down, because we want to make sure that we're staying prudent and doing what we need to do, and we are trying to keep that up. The transition to online for the high school and middle school is going. There are some families that are not happy because we're kind of holding those kids to some requirements to do the work. We have kids that have not done anything while they've been online. Zero. And we're keeping those kids accountable because they are not being successful. And if they can't be successful online, we're telling them, well, you need to either come to school to be successful or maybe try something else, because what we're doing for you right now is not working. There are a lot of families that it is working, and we want to keep it available for those families. But we're concerned about the kiddos that aren't being successful. About 15% of our families are still online. 15% of our kiddos are still online. That's from the entire district. And so, we're doing our best. It's relieved a lot of the stress from our middle school and high school teachers. K-5, we have dedicated online teachers at those grade levels, and so that's a little bit easier for them to manage. But we have, I've been following the numbers in the community. We have about 2/3 of Yavapai County's population on the side of the mountain in the Quad City area. We've had, anywhere from, like for example, today we had 48 cases yesterday. Only 13 of them were in the Quad City area. So 1/4 of the cases with 2/3 of the population. So things are, there was a video that came out from Leslie Horton, who's the director of the Yavapai County Health Department. And that came out, I think, last week. She had mentioned that there's some senior living facilities that are having outbreaks, and there's a couple of outbreaks in the Verde Valley right now. So that's accounting for a lot of those numbers. Still need to be concerned that it is still out in the community. We can still be impacted. We still need to keep up with what we're doing. But right now, if we've had, like I said, one adult and one student in the time that we've been in person between hybrid and all in person, I think that's actually a pretty good result. And we're working with the health department to make sure that those kids that are exposed are doing what they need to do, and so they are staying healthy and keeping everyone else healthy. Questions?
As the mom of a kindergartner, I have to tell you that, Juke wearing his mask has just become second nature. Like, he doesn't complain about it. It's just, at first I was a little worried about, just them having to, but he has it on before he gets out of my car and goes, and he's a kindergartner, so I just think that if my kid's like that and he's not, I mean, these kids are just getting used to it, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I hate to see it on them. I think it's sad to see the masks on those young kids, but the fact that they're just getting used to it, I think is, you know, a good thing.
Well, I do wanna say, I wanna give kudos out to the kids.
Yeah.
Because, you know, unfortunately, wearing a mask has become second nature.
Yeah,
And we've had very few problems with the mask wearing. We still have the online, there are still families that are keeping some kids home because they don't want their kids wearing masks, and that's fine.
yeah,
As long as they're staying up on their work online, we're okay with that. And I also want to thank families, because we are getting calls when there is, you know, for example, somebody might have had a family get-together, one person tests positive, and the family's keeping those kids home, not sending them to school. And that's keeping people safe also.
yeah.
And so I want to thank families for thinking of others and their own kids, and you know, stepping up and taking care of business when they need to. So I think that's happening as well. So I want to kudos to the kids and kudos to our families for doing what they need to do to keep our kids safe.
And they can go to the cafeteria now,
Yes,
and they can play on the playground now. Those are all huge things.
yes. You know, we're trying to make it as normal as possible in a non-normal situation.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Well, this is an action item. If nobody has any more questions, appreciate a motion, please.
I'll make a motion. Hold on, what am I approving here? I'll make a motion to approve the in-person instruction guidelines.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, good job, John. Item 10B, Mr. Scholl, revision to determination of excess capacity for open enrollment.
So annually, usually during the summer, the board approves the, what grade levels are open for open enrollment and which are not. And so with things, kind of instructional models changing, we have online, we have in person, we have other things going on. I thought, and then we have a lot of kids that are gone. You know, we're not necessarily have the same number of kids that we had before. So I wanted to go through and kind of revise these. I've asked the principals, we have a moratorium on open enrollment right now, which means we're just we're taking applications until the board does action and comes up with these new guidelines. And so before I just had kind of in-person instruction, there was just one group, kinder through 12th grade. I've kind of split that up and split up the teachers, so now we have an online instruction, open enrollment as well, kinder through 5th. 6th through 12, we kind of left open just because we have Edgenuity to cover that. Also, down below we have our special needs classes, and that really hasn't changed. We only had openings in our EDP course classrooms before, and that's all we have now. So, these are just revised numbers to use for the schools to accept open enrollment and not. The only other thing that I'd like to ask, and this was a request of the administrators, in the past, for example, if you look, we have kindergarten is closed, but first grade is open. And say we had two kids come, a first grader and a kindergartner from the same family. If one kid got in open enrollment, we usually let the other in. We're asking to waive that we're only, you know, if you have two kids and one is eligible for open enrollment and one's not, you gotta make a choice. Just because we get impacted too much, and that's something that we're complicated right now, we have larger class sizes in some of these areas. We're just asking to kind of waive that as well. So on the action requested, it does say that children of employees, which we still want to include, current open enrollment students, so we're not going to kick anyone else out. And then we want to just kind of leave it at that, where it says, and the siblings of current open enrollment students. We want to just exclude that portion on the motion, so we wouldn't go there.
So we want to cross out "and the siblings of the current."
Exactly,
enrollment
please.
student.
Please. That way, we still meet the letter of the law. We still are open to open enrollment for those that want to come, and for where we have capacity to do that.
So if someone that is actually opted for online Ingenuity, in December, they could decide, or in January, I mean, they could decide to come back, does that change these numbers?
What we would probably do, it doesn't change the number of kids.
But the open,
And what we may end up doing is collapsing some of those sections. So say a teacher that teaches first and second grade open enrollment, online instruction, we may collapse those and have one teacher do both grade levels, like a mixed grade level, and put that teacher into the classroom where they're needed.
okay.
So there may be some, it wouldn't change the number of kids in the grade level, so we can accommodate that if it's open before, we open after,
Okay.
yeah. But to your point, I thank you for bringing that up. We are still gonna keep the option of having the ability for parents to take their kids online for third quarter, or bring their online kids in person third quarter. That will still be available.
Okay. Any other questions? This is an action item. We would appreciate, please, a motion with the revision.
I'll make the motion to approve the revised determination of excess capacity for the 2021 school year and determine that children of employees, current open enrollment students enrolled in 19 and 20 are not subject to the open enrollment policy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This meeting will be adjourned. Thank you very much.